Hey guys, Dr. Ben here, Functional Medicine Centers, and thanks for jumping on board today. So excited to spend some time with you. I've been reading some more research, some new studies that are coming out. Just want to catch you up on some of the latest information out there on COVID and what we're seeing with some of the statistics out there. So one of the first things that I want to go over is from September 2nd, 2020, from the Annals of Internal Medicine. It's a very respected journal out there. Hey guys, thanks for jumping on board. Again, Dr. Ben here, Functional Medicine Centers. We've got our Fort Collins office. We've also got our Phoenix location as well. We work with patients all over the country, but super excited to have you on board. If you haven't already liked or followed our page, go ahead and hit that button. Also, if you're jumping on board, go ahead and tell me where you're watching in from. Love seeing where everybody's watching from. We've got Ohio and Maryland and Arizona and tons of people in Nebraska, Wyoming, Colorado, all over the place. So go ahead and let us know where you're calling in from, and if you've got any questions, shoot those down below as well. So pretty interesting statistics showing up here. This was a study that was published in September 2nd, 2020 in the Annals of Internal Medicine. It's a very respected journal, and they did an in-depth statistical analysis looking at the number of deaths, the percentage of deaths, how many people died that had infections, all these different things. And one of the things that they did, they separated out the people that were in nursing homes and already assisted living, already kind of on their downward hill, and just everybody else out there. And so we're talking about the non-institutionalized people in this study. And basically, they were looking at the average age of death of people was 76.9. So the average age of death in the U.S. is 81. So 76.9, we know that it obviously goes up a lot higher. That way, they call it the infection fatality rate or in fatality ratio, either one. And at first, when we shut down the United States, when we shut down the world, and back in March, it was like, holy cow, we don't know what's going to happen. What they were looking at, they were thinking that fatality ratio was going to be at least 3 to 5% was what the World Health Organization was saying. What we know now, many reports have already said this, and this latest study did, it was 0.26%, which it still stings. People have still died from this, and that's a bummer. But the ratio, thank God, is way lower than we thought it was going to be. They were looking at 3%, 4%, 5%, which would have been a huge number from this. So the infection fatality ratio is 0.026%, and this is across the entire age bracket. When you talk about under 40 and under, it goes down to 0.01%. So very low percentage, which is great. You know, again, under 40, basically almost zero risk of dying from COVID, which is great. In 60 and older, that's the bracket that it jumps up a little bit. That's a 1.71% fatality risk that we were seeing, or that fatality ratio. And that, yes, is higher than these other groups, but still half of what they were thinking it was going to be, and a whole lot lower. And we know from looking at the CDC's website that that's 94% of those people are going to have an average of 2.6 other conditions on their death certificate rather than just the COVID being the cause of death. We also see in this study that white people were 0.18% fatality ratio, where non-whites, Hispanic, blacks, things like that, were 0.59%. So way higher. I did a video a couple days on this ago. Big reason that we're seeing that is vitamin D. The darker skin somebody has, the harder it is to absorb vitamin D. There are a lot of studies showing that darker skinned people have lower vitamin D levels. You've got to get that vitamin D cranking up there. So we like it 60 to 80 for people for that vitamin D to be in that optimal range. And this is one of the reasons that we're seeing Caucasians, whites at 0.18% fatality ratio, where non-whites was 0.59%. Again, this is September 2nd, 2020. This study was published in the Annals of Internal Medicine. Average age of death, 76.9. Infection fatality ratio was 0.26%. 2%, way lower than that 3% that they were worried about back in February and March. Under 40 years of age, it's a 0.01% fatality ratio, which is almost non-existent in there. What's really interesting is the seasonal flu. The seasonal flu, as reported in this article, that ratio for fatality ratio is 0.8%, 0.8%, and the infection fatality ratio for COVID is 0.26%. So pretty fascinating. It's almost a third lower. You've got 3 times as likely to die from the flu than you are from COVID. So this is the best news that I've seen in quite a while. It goes along with a lot of the other research that we've been seeing throughout this whole time, in that the percentages are thankfully way lower. Remember back in February, March, they were saying, oh my gosh, it's going to be 10% of the people, it's going to be 3%, it's going to be 1 million or 2 million or 3 million people are going to die. The CDC reports 169,000 people have died with COVID, but remember, 94% of those have died from other things. And so you look at the death certificate, and it's an average of 2.6 other conditions that people have died with COVID. And so my favorite on there, again, it's not fun to see, but over 5,000 of those 169,000 people died from voluntary and involuntary basically accidental or suicide or even murder, and they counted those as COVID deaths. We've also got diabetes and heart disease and all these things. And a common thing we hear from a lot of people is, well, that person, if they wouldn't have gotten COVID, they would have lived longer. And also on the flip side, that person that had severe diabetes or cardiovascular disease or high blood pressure or any of the other conditions that we know, if they didn't have those conditions and COVID came into their body and they had to deal with that, they wouldn't have died either. So it's a really interesting thought process when we look at the back and forth here, and people say, oh well, COVID is what caused the death. Well, you could look at it the other way, in that diabetes or cardiovascular disease or COPD from smoking or whatever caused it, and a virus was just something that flared that up a little bit. So it's an interesting thought process to look at, but the infection fatality ratio across the board, all ages with COVID, is 0.26%, and in that same study they were looking at, the seasonal influenza or the seasonal flu had a fatality rate of 0.8%. So super interesting, great news. COVID a lot less deadly than we thought it was going to be. We've been talking about this for months here. We saw it even back in China. We saw in Italy, 99% of the people that had died in Italy with COVID died with other conditions. We've also seen that in the New York Times a couple weeks ago, they reported that 90% of positive PCR tests, 90% of the cases are actually, they're not contagious. They don't need to quarantine. The test is too sensitive. So we've got way more cases being reported than are actually a live, true infection. So another great part of it is that not as many people, even like 90% less of the people that are getting tested positive actually truly have COVID in their system, and it's a true infection. A lot of them, they say that it's fragments of genetic material. It's not even true infection. So great news there as well. Way less number. So when you look at that total number, that 6 million, 7 million, whatever it is, there's a good chance that 90% of those positive tests, the people did not have an infection. They did not they weren't contagious. They weren't truly a carrier of COVID. So the numbers much lower than we thought they were going to be. Be safe, stay strong, do what you've got to do, get your vitamin D up, be getting your sleep, your exercise, all those things we've talked about. Still keep your body as strong as possible for any flu, because even the flu has a higher fatality ratio than COVID, and yet you've got to be strong for everything coming at you. So, all right, guys, great to see you. If you've got any questions, go and pop those down below, and like or follow our page if you haven't already. Share this with anybody you know that has just been really worried and like, oh my gosh, much? Should I send my kids to school? Should I go to work? Should I, grocery store? All those different things. Have them watch this. If you want more information, shoot us messages. We love to get that out there. And the fear that a lot of people are carrying around with them is decreasing their immune system worse than anything out there. And if you get your body strong and get your body healthy, you're going to be able to fight anything off there at all. So make it a great day, everybody, and take care.